What's up, guys? Welcome back to Infamous Project. It is a rainy day in Texas today, and I am working on Project FOXIDIZED. Now, originally, I was trying to get this car ready for the LMR cruise-in. However, I think I'm going to have a shortage of drivers, and I'm not trying to stress myself out last minute just because I have so much going on right now that, like, my head is spinning. But with that said, I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to see if I can get everything done that needs to be done if I have the opportunity to bring it to the show. You can see the trunk lid is off of my Silver Dutch Coupe because it is gone to finally get properly color matched to the car. It was like a shade off, and it actually wasn't a shade off. The metallic texture or the coarseness of the metallic was actually finer on my trunk lid than it was the rest of the car because the trunk lid originally had a spoiler on it. I had the spoiler removed, the holes welded up, trunk lid repainted, and it just, like 9 out of 10 people couldn't tell, but I could tell. And that was the most important thing. So you can see it's a little bit of a mess in there still. I got some tools and battery charger, and you can see some stereo components, but you still can't see the air ride system unless you're really looking towards the back there. So I'm really happy with how that all got sorted out. But aside from that, yesterday, I got into Project Menace here and I changed the passenger side tie rod end, which I had noticed was bent, most likely as a result of towing, and probably the driver put the hook on the tie rod end and pulled on it and ultimately bent it. So that got swapped out, which motivated me today to tackle the tie rod ends on FOXIDIZED. So the inners here, if we move the rotor like so, right? So we're gonna get that swapped, and let's see how our passenger side is here. Way worse. All right, so we're gonna get both those done. On another note, my lip spoilers, and that's another reason why the trunk lid is off, because I'm getting the lip spoiler painted and I'll be getting that installed. So at this car, it's actually going to the LMR cruise-in for sure. It's going to be its annual, 400-mile round trip drive for the year, and it'll be a great opportunity to showcase it, because last year it kind of got lost in the mix. I was parked out with all the S197s and S550s and Lightnings and SN95s, and I kind of got lost with the plethora of the late models. So this time I'm going to be in with the foxbody guys, I think in the fenced in area. And with that said, I've been busy trying to get the Celine 421 car wrapped up. It came back due to a vibration, which I spoke about on a recent podcast. And you guys are going to see exactly what happens when I finally release the video for that. But I guess, long story short, it's what happens when too many different people work on a build and some communication gets lost over time and in between different builders and shops, etc., etc. So anyways, I'm going to get back to this, knocking this thing out, and hopefully I can get the tie rods done fairly easily. Everything on this car up until now has come apart quite well. I do notice that there's a couple leaks under there that I'm going to try and address. If I can get that all sorted out, I want to actually move on to welding up the floor so I can actually get the seats bolted in. You see I got my welder over here from the commercial shop, so hopefully I can get that done. The last thing that I'm going to worry about is the spare tire well. I do have a donor one, but it's not like life or death for me to get that welded up. But you can see the top has been done. The old donation from the Stalker Vert. So if you guys haven't seen that video, make sure you check it out. And guys, I'm still beside myself with the amount of attention that Project Menace here has been bringing. So I am going to be doing some more content on this car, and it's actually already sold. So I'm going to be going through, touching things up, because when I sell a car, I want to make sure that whoever gets the car is getting it right and that their expectations are exceeded. Not only managed, but that they are exceeded. So we will be getting intimate with this car. If there hasn't already been more videos posted up about it, So stay tuned for that. For now, let's get to these tie rod ends. Of course, you know, you jack the car up, take the wheels and tires off and everything else, and you can see here, you know, a bunch of stuff has been dripping. That's most likely from beforehand, but there's more here that's been dripping. You can see on the lower radiator hose. So I'm going to try and chase some of that and see exactly what's going on. And for now, I'm going to be taking this guy off. So we're going to loosen this jam nut. This is pretty straightforward stuff, guys. Loosen the jam nut, take the cotter pin out, loosen the castle nut, beat the outer tie rod out of the spindle so that's loose, take the boot off, and, you know, rotate the inner tie rod off of the, whatchamacallit, the steering rack. And, you know, there's a little set pin in there that'll automatically remove itself as you spin it loose, and reversive removal. So let's get at it.
Or two, that secretly everybody's really a Tesla fan. So they don't make fun of me because subconsciously they enjoy the Teslas themselves. So I don't know which one is the more likely, but I think they're both plausible.
All right, guys, that turned in to a much bigger job than I was expecting. I thought I was going to be knocking off 2 inner tie rod ends, putting on new outer tie rod ends, and that was going to be it. But as soon as I took the boot off of the driver's side, out came a whole bunch of power steering fluid, which kind of explains where maybe some of the leak was going, because I did notice that in fact the power steering reservoir was emptying itself out after the car would be parked for a while and there'd be a puddle underneath. I thought it was still a transmission line leaking somewhere, but in fact it was the power steering system. So fortunate enough, I had an extra rack laying around, and then I ended up swapping out the rack. And it wasn't that bad. However, doing it on the ground sucks. And the amount of people that ask me, why do you work on the ground when you have all those lifts? Well, when the lifts are occupied and it's going to take you more time to move stuff around just to be able to get on the lift, and especially when a car is slammed on the ground like this one and I already had it up in the air, it meant I would have had to put the wheels back on, I would have had to put the outer tie rod back on, and I would have had to move the Calypso car out, move that car around to get on the back lift, because this car doesn't even have a K-member underneath it. So sometimes an easy job turns extra hard. So fortunately enough for me, you know, I put a pad down, put a blanket down, and tried to stay as comfortable as I could. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate, because not everybody has a lift. So, brand new steering rack, right? Awesome. Brand new inner and outer tie rod ends, and they're all greased up and ready to go. So in reality, all I need to do is fill up the power steering reservoir and, you know, do some lock-to-lock turning, get all of the air out of the system and purge it all out, and everything should be good to go. So I'm happy about that because that takes care of the steering. So steering's good. I still want to go around and bleed the brakes one more time. If you guys remember, I actually bled the brakes myself using like a 4x4 wedged against the seat. And yeah, so the brakes work, but they could be working a hell of a lot better. So I do need to bleed the brakes, but I think I'm going to attempt to do the transmission filter. Like, it's really annoying that the transmission is skipping over second gear, and just judging the way all the other fluids were in the car. And guys, I know this is a serious debate of, you know, do you open up and change transmission fluid? So I'm not going to be changing all the fluid. I'm going to be just changing the fluid that comes out as a result of dropping the pan and swapping out the filter. So the torque converter, whatever fluid's in it is going to be in there. Whatever fluid is going through the cooler lines is going to be in there. Some of it might drain back through, but it's not going to be all the fluid, but it's going to be a good amount that's going to get changed over. Maybe I'll feed it the Lucas after, but we'll see. I have a feeling that the filter, I don't know, I could be wrong, but power steering fluid was nasty. The oil, you guys saw the inside of the car, how bad it was. So we're going to give it a whirl and see. I don't know if I'm going to be doing it tonight because I really didn't anticipate swapping out the steering rack. So might leave that there for now. And, you know, I don't want to be welding the floors inside the shop just because you never know with your surroundings and everything else. And it's clean in here, so I need the rain to stop outside. And then I'm going to get to the welding aspect of things. And guys, we're not trying to achieve perfection. We are trying to achieve function and safety. So we can actually bolt the seat down properly, use the seat belts, and you know what I mean? It is a foxbody convertible after all, so we need all the help that we can get. So that is the story on FOXIDIZED right now. Stay tuned because there's definitely going to be more to come. All right, guys, so against my better judgment, I'm going for the transmission pan. I'm already dirty. The car is already up in the air. Just gonna get it done. Come on. Unreal. Oh, dick. Okay, there's one. Okay, so should probably make sure. I know this is gonna make a mess, guys. I know it's gonna make a mess. So just make sure we got a couple fastened up here. Okay. All right, so managed to get the pan slid out of there. It was actually really close to the linkage engagement and the cross member, but managed to snake it out. Only spilled a little bit. So nothing too bad. Transmission fluid doesn't smell burnt or anything like that. The reality is the gasket was in really bad shape and it was leaking. So the gasket needed to be replaced anyways. So we'll go ahead, I'll unbolt the old filter, we'll put the new one on, and hopefully that'll help things out, clean things up, put the new gasket on, put the pan back on, fill everything back up, and fingers crossed, we'll have a happy transmission that wants to shift better. I think it's literally just the 3. Yeah. Okay. I am happy that I decided to pull this pan. You can see it's got kind of the same sludge that the motor did, and I'm sure that all of that is in the filter here and just, you know what I mean, not allowing the filter to do its thing. So, oh shit, look at this mess I've made. Oh man. Anyways, let me clean up this mess because I need to find out where this thing goes, because it came out and clearly it has a home. So I don't know if it's from underneath the filter or what. So I've put in a phone call to a friend and I'm going to get that sorted out. We're going to get that cleaned up in the parts washer. We'll get our surfaces clean. We'll get our gasket on and get the pan wedged in, and then that'll be that. So got the pan all clean. It's probably the cleanest part on the entire car. There's our new gasket. Still debating if I'm gonna just use the right stuff or actually use the gasket. Maybe I'll use a combination of both. We'll see how I feel. See, we got our new filter on there. Got the surface all clean. Bolts are all clean. So gonna snake the pan back up in there and get the job done. And I almost forgot. This little guy, it's actually part of the assembly process. So this little plunger actually goes into the dipstick hole of the transmission. I guess probably to keep anything from getting inside. And then once the dipstick is installed, it knocks this through and it just lives on the bottom side of your pan. So if you have a transmission that's never been serviced before, which clearly this one has not, then you're gonna find a little plunger that looks like this. So not an important part. In fact, we're removing something that, well, the transmission in reality, I forget the mileage on this thing, 60 odd something thousand miles. So with the mileage that this car has, I'm not overly surprised that the transmission's never been serviced before, but that explains that. So let's get this thing buttoned up and call it a night, because we're approaching 9 p.m. and I want to go have a beer and relax.